Welcome all. This PPT has been prepared by referring many sources, and this is exclusively used for the purpose of education, and I do not claim any originality in preparing this PPT. This is the fifth session in module 2. This comprises of directing and controlling. These are the learning objectives. By the end of this chapter, the student should be able to understand the meaning and nature of directing, leadership styles, motivation theories, why motivation is required, and the importance of communication and coordination, different coordinating techniques, different steps in controlling, and essentials of a good control system, and various methods of establishing control. Let us discuss the meaning of directing. Directing is very important managerial function. It is concerned with the way by which the manager stimulates action by giving proper order and shows the direction to his subordinates. Normally, what is required from the part of a manager is that he needs to show some direction to his subordinates. Normally, it is the tendency of the human behavior that we need to take orders from our superior or our bosses and work accordingly. Very few people will take the initiative and work on their own, and they become managers. Most of the human beings would prefer to take orders from their superiors, and that is why this directing is a very important managerial function. Because of a good managerial quality and good directional qualities, the entire organization will be able to achieve the goals what it had planned in the during the planning stage. This is how it is done. So you are taking your subordinates along with you towards success. Let us discuss the nature of directing, how directing is present in an organization. It is an important managerial function. Of course, without proper directing, nothing will move on. It's a continuing function. It's not a one time affair. There is no full stop for that. It is there, and it has to be there forever. It's a linking function. It links between the earlier functions like planning, organizing, and staffing to the next function, that is coordinating. Provides harmony of objectives, uh, objectives of the top management, objectives of the middle management, objectives of the lower level management. They are all brought together, and all of them will start thinking alike in the same direction. That is another important nature of directing. Improves communication. It's very important that there should not be any communication gap among different people, different levels in an organization. If the directing is proper, if the leader shows each and every subordinate a proper direction, then all of them will speak the same language. That is the language of improvement, language of growth, language of increasing the profit, language of sustainability. So in this way, the communication becomes common and hence improves the communication. Follows unity of command. Of course, you have a single leader, or even if you have multiple leaders, all of them are giving the same command. That is why it is termed as unity of command. Encourages follow through. The follow through means it's a very smooth movement from the earlier three functions to the next function. So there will not be any bottlenecks if the direction is proper. If there is no proper directing, if there is no proper leadership, then smooth transition won't take place. Now let us discuss leadership. Leadership is the crown for any directing. Directing is a function and a leadership is the crown. So if proper directing has to be there, the leadership should accordingly be very apt and very proper. According to Peter Drucker, leadership is the lifting of man's visions to higher heights, raising the performance to higher levels, and building of man's personality beyond its normal limitations. Each human being will have certain limitations. What a leader need to do is that you have to help the human beings, help the subordinates to realize their real potential. Most of the times what happens, human beings will fail to realize their potential and always underperform. A good leader will see that the subordinates will not only just perform, they exceed their potential. They see that they perform beyond their limits. That is what makes a good leader. The art or the process of influencing people so that they will strive willingly and enthusiastically towards the achievement of group goals. It is not an individual goals, it is a group goal. The entire organization is working towards a common goal, common interest, general interest. So a leader will always see that that goal is achieved successfully. In this diagram you can see here, it is very clear that a person has kept his hand here so that all other subordinates are using this man's hand to cross over. This is a gap and he did not hesitate to place his hand itself. So this is what a leader is required to be. He should not deter, he should not put a step back. If he keeps a step back, then people will also will turn back. That should not happen. Here I have shown four different diagrams. This is the first diagram, and this is the Lord Gomateshwara of Shravanabelagola, carved during 980 AD. This is number 2. This is Lord Gomateshwara of Karkala, carved somewhere during 12th or 13th century. This is Lord Gomateshwara of Venur, carved during 14th 15th century, and this is Lord Gomateshwara of Dharmasthala, carved during 1980. There is 1000 year of gap between the first and the fourth. You can see the uh, face, the structure, body structure, and all those things. And it's a general opinion. It's a general opinion that um, the body structure, everything, the proportion, the facial expression. There is a shloka in Jainism, Visattakandatta Dalayaram. It goes like that. It explains how Gomateshwara looks. And when we see the Lord Gomateshwara of Shravanabelagola, it exactly resembles that. So why I have put these four pictures here is that uh, it has changed uh, the could be the art, we don't know, it could be the artist or the commitment or whatever it is. It has changed from this to this, and the leadership also may be different, and why people have changed their mindset, how a leader had influenced at the earlier stage and how the leader has influenced in the present stage. All these things could be seen in this diagram, and the leaders were really great and people had very high respect for the leaders earlier, and nowadays it is very hard to see people having that kind of charismatic leadership. This is the real difference between boss and the leader. We can very clearly see here, this is the boss, and what boss is doing is ordering. Look at his hand. He's just asking his men to pull the business. Whereas look here, this is the leader. What this leader is doing, he is taking the lead, he is in the forefront of the business, and he is asking his subordinates, come, let us pull this business to the forward direction. This is the difference between boss and the leader. And if you behave like a boss, that business cannot sustain for a long time. If a leader is in the forefront, definitely that business can sustain for long time. Even in history we can see that Hitler was a boss, and even though he was on top for much of the time, for 6 years, 8 years later he had to die. Whereas our freedom fighters were not like this. They were in the forefront. For example, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. He did not behave like a boss. He was there in the war front. He fought with his people, and he was like the leader. Mahatma Gandhi was a leader. He was in the forefront of the freedom struggle. So leaders are, as long as leaders are there, that business will succeed. If a business has bosses, that business will fail. What is the difference between manager and a leader? Are they common? Do you mean to say that manager and leader are one and the same? Let us see. Manager is made while leader is emerged or leader is born. We always say he is a born leader. We normally do not say he is a born manager. Managers are not born, managers are made, or managers can be made. We can mold a person into a manager, but molding a person into leader is very difficult, or it's almost impossible. It's a born quality. Leadership is a born quality, and very few people will have that quality. Leader has personal powers while manager has positional powers. Normally, irrespective of your leadership skills, you can still become a manager because of your experience. However, a leader is a born leader, and right from the day one he starts taking the entire business or the group with storm, and he emerges top. Vikramaditya was a born leader. Ashoka was a born leader. Right from young age, they were displaying the qualities of a leader. So that is the difference between leader and manager. Leader does not enforce objectives and follows mutuality of objectives with his subordinates, while manager may face clash of objectives as he forces the objectives on subordinates. Manager is made. He normally what he does, he has got into that position because of his experience, and he can exercise the power because he is in that position. Whereas leader need not have to have a position to exercise his power. He can exercise his power even though he doesn't have any power. That is his personal ability. So because of the personal ability, he need not have to enforce objectives. People will follow him. People will follow him because he has that kind of ability, and people will realize that he is a leader, and they will have faith in him. They will have confidence in that leader. That could be Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai or Kittur Rani Chennamma. Many leaders we can go on mentioning in our Indian history. They did not enforce anything, but people were following them because they had confidence in them. Whereas a manager has got into that position because of his experience, or it could be position, and there will be clash of some objectives because he tries to force because of his the position. So this is the difference between leader and manager. And everything is put in this block diagram. We can very clearly see that leader, he creates vision, he it helps in assembling the team, creating the shared values, knows the skills and motivations of each team member, resolving conflict, he is inspiring, he knows when to devolve power. Look at the opposite, that he understands goals and team and company. He creating and prioritizes tasks to be completed, assigning tasks to appropriate team, motivating and guiding, of course, uh, reviewing work output. Management, as I said, they are more of implementation, whereas leaders are those who normally frame. uh, they take the lead role in framing the policies, taking the organization in the proper direction, whereas managers uh, add to the leadership and help leaders in taking the organization to a higher glory. That is the major difference between leader and the manager. Normally what we feel is that leaders are born, they give direction to the organization, whereas managers can be made, and they help the leaders in taking organization to higher levels. So this is the basic difference between uh, leader and manager. What are the different leadership styles? Normally we speak of three leadership styles. First one is the autocratic style, second one is the democratic style, and the third one is free reign type. In addition to these, we also have two more types, that is transactional and transformational. These are two more leadership styles in addition to these three. Free reign type is also called as laissez-faire. This is the another name for free reign leadership styles. And let us discuss how these leaders exhibit their talent, how they feature themselves. Let us try to see that. First one, we will discuss about autocratic style of leadership. An autocratic leader commands and expects compliance, is dogmatic and positive, and leads by ability to withhold or give rewards and punishment. The best example I can show you here is that of Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin. These world leaders, they were all autocratic leaders. People gave them respect not because they loved them, it is because people feared them. Okay, and at the by the time they could realize that these people are losing power, people revolted, and when people revolted, these people could not sustain that revolt. And according to history, somebody says that Hitler committed suicide, and Mussolini was stoned to death, and he was a top leader, and he was taking the entire World War II in storm. But later, these two people met the end in a very miserable way. So that is what an autocratic leader is, and he demands strict obedience and relies on power. So he doesn't like any disobedience, and many a times we have heard from history that even small difference in during the march past, that soldier used to be called out and he was being killed. And this is how autocratic leaders do. Subordinates of such leader will always be under fear. They just, that's what I said, they just do not give respect to them because they love them. They are always under fear, and they don't know what may happen. Even the North Korean leader, he is also like that. He is an autocratic leader. They are power lovers and use it to the best of their ability. And one of the study has indicated that Hitler was one of the most shy natured boy during his school days, and he always wanted to come out of that shy nature, and he was bullied because of his short stature. He was very short, and because of his short stature, which is very unusual for a German, people used to laugh at him, and this made him feel that he wants to show off, and he started instilling fear among his subordinates and emerged as a leader of Nazi movement. Some autocratic leaders are positive motivators, and we normally call them as benevolent autocrats. They are autocrats They always they take their own decision, and subordinates under them normally do not get any chance, but they are very positive motivators. Such leaders are called as benevolent autocrats. Next, we shall see the merits and demerits of an autocratic leader. Merits are, yes, they can get you the quickest possible results. And one of the article what I have read is that Jeep, just for every emergency purposes. It's how it came. Jeep is the acronym for just for every emergency purposes, JEEP. And when Hitler was trying to invade Poland, he faced lots of difficulties to move the vehicles in a terrain region. Poland had lots of terrain region, so he just ordered his people to develop a vehicle just for every emergency purposes, and that's how Jeep came into existence. And that was done in a very quick time. In that article I had read that the entire design and it was brought into shape within 15 days, and within 1 month the vehicle was ready, because people fear if they do not design a vehicle quickly, their life is under threat. So that is the kind of influence an autocratic leader will have. Direction is very clear for subordinates, because they need not have to think. The autocratic leader gives, just follow it. Most suitable for less competent managers. That's what I said just now. Hitler was a very shy natured boy as a child, as a young boy, and in order to overcome that, in order to stop his friends bullying him, he went on becoming aggressive, and that started instilling fear among his subordinates. The demerits are gives way for one-way communication. You cannot reply. If you just try to reply, you are no more. Schindler's List. Please watch that movie, Schindler's List. It's a wonderful movie which will tell you about how difficult it was Hitler's rule, to live in during Hitler's rule. He did not even spare Einstein, the genius. Well, he had the highest IQ at that point of time, and just for the reason he was a Jew, Hitler did not even spare Einstein. Einstein had to go to America and take shelter. That is the kind of uh, the dictatorship what Hitler has demonstrated. Leads to frustration, low morale, and develops conflict. It's very true. It leads to frustration. People start hating, and nuclear bombs. One of the another article had indicated that nuclear bombs were deliberately not developed, even though three scientists had this equal capability as that of Albert Einstein. They did not develop nuclear bomb because they knew what Hitler will do with those nuclear bombs, and the entire world may end. And that's why they just kept on postponing, and World War II ended. Full potential of subordinates are never tapped, because you don't have a two-way communication. No development for subordinates. You are shunned. You are tried to subdue. You will be subdued under such autocratic leaders. Let us discuss about the democratic type of leadership. They are participative, always consult the subordinates and encourages their participation. Vajpayee was such a leader, and he always demonstrated this kind of democratic type of leadership. He never took decision on his own. He used to consult lot many people. He used to sit with them, take everyone into confidence before he implemented anything, and that's why he could manage 16 different democratic parties as a prime minister, and it was a record. Even today, it's nobody has that kind of ability to take different people from different states, having different mindsets, but taking all of them together was a great task, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee demonstrated that. Subordinates are given freedom, enough freedom to express their opinion. Leader is not a key person as that of authoritarian leader. However, he will be a very important person in the network. Normally, what we say is that he is not as aggressive as an authoritative leader, but he will get lots of respect in that democratic setup or participative setup. The group can work efficiently even in his absence because he has developed second line of leadership. Merits and demerits of democratic type: supports participation from everyone, not only supports but also encourages participation from everyone, improves the communication, you are allowed to speak, you are given a chance to speak, you can express your views and your views will be very highly valued. Workers are aware of the happenings in the company and workers know what is happening in the company, and they also start participating. That's why it is called as participative type of leadership. They participate, they uh, give their a bit of work, whatever they can do, they contribute towards the growth of the company. Potential of subordinates are fully utilized, completely tapped. Even they realize that I have contributed more to the company. If I were not given a chance to contribute, I wouldn't have understood that I have so much of potential. Such kind of very conducive environment is there. The limitations are, of course, it will take more time because people will speak and they have their own mindset, and everything has to be consulted, everything gets consulted, and that consultation takes more time. The executives have to be more competent. This is very very important. You can't take a multilateral decision every time. Sometimes you may have to take a unilateral decision or with minimum discussion when it's a matter of high urgency, but democratic leaders normally do not follow that. They always discuss, and that takes more time, and executives, if they are not competent, it's very difficult. This is seen as a way to avoid responsibility. Many a times they set up committees, they they keep on postponing the meetings, they keep on discussing in the meetings. This is seen as a way to avoid responsibility. Success is dependent on the communication skills of the leader, how well you communicate to your subordinates, how well you convince your subordinates to achieve things. That is what is another important demerit, and all leaders cannot convince everyone. That's why such kind of leadership sometimes are detrimental to the growth of a company or a nation. Free rein type of leadership, this is the final type of leadership wherein it's also called as laissez-faire, and very little power if at all. Normally they will not have any power. Everything is taken by the subordinates, and anybody can be leader, all of them are leaders. Such leader provides only information, no authoritative power, no power due to position. They just are a part of that group, and whatever they, many a times even the group member will dominate, and he will be placed above such kind of free rein type of leadership, or ignored by the group. When you don't have that authority, when you don't have that kind of charisma, normally people ignore you, and someone else will be taking every decision on your behalf, and you will be a mute spectator. You will be just keeping mum, and whatever people ask you to do, you will just have to put your signature, and ultimately who will take the blame? This leader only will take the blame. But the subordinates under him or her, they will be enjoying everything. They may even loot the country, they may even loot the company, they may push the company or nation towards debacle, but you will be a mute spectator because you will not have any power. That is the major drawback of this kind of leadership. No motivation at all, because subordinates are least bothered about you. Merits and demerits. Merits are subordinates enjoy the freedom. Yes, they can do anything and everything, and morale increases because they are getting everything, no, which wouldn't have been possible if the leader were very strong. So subordinates are doing everything, and subordinates are enjoying, but at the cost of company or a country. That is very, very important. Full scope for the development of the employees, that's also very true, because the entire subordinate group is improving because no one is asking them, no one is stopping them. Demerits are, it can lead to chaos. That's what will happen, and everything goes to debacle, and the entire company will fail. Leader is for namesake, as I said, it's for he or she is for namesake, and no one is bothered. Cannot work in time of crisis. When crisis occurs, those who are taking every gulp of the bread or the cake, they will escape. They will immediately escape and leave this person alone, and this person cannot handle the crisis. Leader's contribution is meager. Subordinates' contribution are more, or there will be one kingmaker who will be taking control of everything. He will be a namesake leader. Two more types of leaders: transactional leaders. They focus on the role of supervision, organization, and group performance. They are concerned about the status quo and day-to-day progress. Okay, transactional. Every transaction is monitored by them. That's why they are called as transactional leaders. Transaction in the sense day-to-day happenings in the industry. That's why they are called as transactional leaders. Now coming to transformational leaders, they transform, they take the entire organization to a higher level with the way of, say, better motivation, and they engage their followers to a better level, and they will have a shared vision. Because of all these things, they transform an entire organization from a lower level to a higher level. That's why they are called as transformational leaders. Transactional leaders do not contribute to a great extent towards the growth of the company, whereas transformational leaders will contribute a great towards the growth of the company. This is the difference between transformational and transactional leaders. Uh, Transformational, as they said, transform, they are proactive, whereas they are just responsive. They do not think in advance and help in growth. They just day-to-day happenings, that's all. But these people take a organization to a greater level. Other differences like performs within the organization culture, and they bring change in the culture. They set different rewards and punishments. They focus on the followers higher ideals and moral values. This kind of leader motivates followers by attracting to their own self-interest, uh, motivates followers by encouraging them to group interests, maintains the status quo. That's what he does. Transactional, he just maintains the status quo as it is. This is happening, let it be like that. But these people creative, innovative ideas to solve problems. This is the major difference between transactional and transformational leadership. Thank you.